Okay, so now we are going to take this picture and we will then take us back into Photoshop and we will do the entire thing. I am going to leave all of these shades down. I typically raise them up, but the reason I'm gonna leave them down is because I want you guys to see how you can deal with shades like this, because these are kind of a pain, right? It's really kind of a pain to have to shoot through these and blend window pulls with these because they can be dark, they can whatever. I typically have them up, but I want to make this a little more difficult so that you can see what that looks like in real time. So camera is set up. We just did the video talking about camera setup and flash setup for all this stuff. So if you missed that, go check it out. That was the last video. This one is going to be about taking the picture and fully editing it. And then the last video is going to talk about that monstrosity right down there, because he, I'm assuming, is going to get a lot of questions and people saying that I'm crazy for using it, because I think I'm a little crazy for doing it. But when you see the flash that comes out of this, oh boy, it's awesome. Okay, I was gonna say, the house we're in is, I know the owner is a client of mine, and we are in here between showings, so I just have to be cognizant of that in case somebody shows up for that, but I think we are good. I have been told there are no more, so we'll see. But anyway, we're gonna shoot this. This is a pretty good, pretty common angle. This is a very nice home, but this is something that I assume a lot of you would encounter. This has been refinished, redone. It's clean, it's staged, it's very, very nice in here. And we have a couple options. So the reason that we are up here, and I talked about it in my last video, is that if we get too far back, we're gonna see the backs of these chairs, right? And it is about a balance of showing off the space versus showing like a nice angle where it is pleasing to you, where you think the composition is good, versus showing square footage, right? Because square footage is money in this business. And a lot of people would pull back here and try and get as far back as possible and shoot it like this. My problem with that is that if you look, you can't see it here, but as you see, the furniture has taken up so much room that you just see a lot of it. It's taking a lot of real estate on the photo. So what I would say is take both of them, but my idea is usually to push up and kind of cut the backs out of the chairs, because I don't really like seeing the backs. You give a little bit of the detail, but those lines from the chair lead us into the photo. They follow the flow of the floor on our 2-point perspective leading off into the distance. We have this wall over here. We don't have all 4 walls, so we have a nice perspective going this way. There is room for 1 points, like over here, but we are only going to be talking about doing this angle. So, focus, we adjust our exposure. I use my light meter on 3D Matrix, and I always shoot it to where I am 1 stop metering over neutral. Now, it does look a little dark in here to me, so I may also increase it up. It's important to know, like tick it up 1 more stop to make it a little bit brighter. It is important to know what your metering is, whether it's spot, 3D matrix, center weighted average, highlight center weighted average, whatever, and know how it works so that you can move quickly through your scene. I like to, like I said, I'm gonna go with what I normally do for this. Make sure we focus. I have a button on my camera bound so I can zoom in and check focus really quick at the press of a button. Zooms 100% into the sensor. And then we're gonna set the timer to 2 seconds. But I like it this way because when I'm working through it, I always know to go to that on my light meter on the side over here. And that's a good base, and that's going to help me quickly move through a home and check that. I'm constantly looking at that. We're not worrying about windows in this one. Flash is on down here, but I have it turned off in the camera so it will not fire. So let's go ahead and fire this photo off. 5 frames, I don't use a remote. You can if you want to. I use the timer. I have always used the timer. It's just easier for me. Grab this guy, make sure not to bonk anything with it. Take him. We are going to make sure our power is adjusted. I'm gonna go to a half here just so I have a lot of power. Switch it to manual mode. I'm at 1/200th of a second, f8, 160 ISO. We're gonna fire this guy off just like that. So I hold it just above the camera, just like that for 99% of what I do. right up here. And this orb makes it to where it lightens everything up. Just like a beautiful soft light, and you'll see it in the photo. That's how I do it, and that's why I use it. We'll talk more about that in the flash video I'm gonna make, but that's where I put it, is here. Sometimes if I am in a reflection, I will walk over here and I will fire it off, or I will walk over here and I will fire it off. So I have 2 frames to move the white orb that is gonna be in that reflection around. And that's all we're going to need.
All right, guys, so today we are going to do the full tutorial. You just saw the video of us shooting it in the home. So now we are going to come back here in Lightroom. I don't have the files pulled in yet. I want to walk through everything that I do, try and be as concise and as thorough as possible. So we're going to import the photos. I typically have them on my NAS network drive. But for the purposes of this video, we have them in a YouTube shoot files folder. So they're right here. I have my 5 interiors and my flash. My camera, as I've talked about in other videos, labels this as flash, FLS for flash, or INT for interiors, or EXT for exteriors automatically when I switch into my user settings. So we're gonna grab these, drag and drop, wait for Lightroom here, and we will import them. We are going to be blending these with Lightroom Infuse. So our next step is to go to the development panel. We are going to come over here and we are going to use our pre-infuse setting. Pre-infuse as a automatic white balance, chooses a camera profile of camera flat. If yours does not look like this, don't worry about it. This is all of my different lookup tables, camera matching profiles, etc. You can also find them here by clicking these 4 little squares and seeing the grid, and you can see what each of them do. I use the camera flat, which is a camera matching profile for my Nikon Z7. We have no exposure, no contrast. We have a -75 on the highlight slider, a +60 on the shadow slider, a +32 on the whites, a -5 on the black slider, 16 texture, 14 clarity, 5 dehaze. I do have basic sharpening applied, which is 68 on the amount, 1.4 on the radius, 12 on the detail, and 24 on the masking. This is all to taste. I hold down Alt and I will drag my mask around until I see where I'd like it to be. And then I apply my sharpening and I apply my radius. There, you can also use this little guy to pick something where you can see the different detail. And if we click this on and off, you can see how it comes in and out of sharpness, just enough. It's already a fairly sharp image because we are shooting at f8. So there's not a lot that needs to be done to it, but just a little bit more. Okay. We also have lens corrections turned on, and that's it. I go over here and I could click create preset and make sure that everything that I have on here is done. You can type it in and save it. We already have that preset, but for those of you who are asking for presets, that's how you do it. The reason that I am hesitant to give you this preset is because it is based 100% off of my Z7 and it may not work for your camera. So moving on, we are going to now take this, grab all of the files other than the flash file, so the 5 frames that we have here, and we're going to sync that across. That way it applies it to all 5 of our images. So now we are going to right-click them, go to Stacking, Group into Stack. And now we have them in a 5 stack. Go back to our library, File, Plugins and Extras, Blend using Lightroom Infuse. I am not going to automatically align these images because they are on a tripod and they did not move. Configuration stays default. My Infuse settings stay default from my Infuse setup video. Output is your choice. I like to put them into a TIFF, append it with -HDR so I know that it is the blended version, and I also keep the blended versions in the same folder, and then I re-import them into Lightroom. I make sure to copy all of the metadata from it, and you can choose to accept certain things, bring them in, whatever. I say copy all of it. It doesn't matter. Infuse image, and we will let that run in the background. While that's running, let's get our flash file set up. We're going to go back to develop with that selected. Now this is the flash that comes out of my 8400 Pro with that lantern diffuser. As you can see, it is extremely soft. Even the shadows on this, barely noticeable and barely there. And that's really going to help us when we go to blend this, because if you've ever gotten those really nasty orange shadows from using a luminosity mask, this is going to help. You can't avoid them altogether. There is no way to get rid of them 100% with just a flash. You have to do a lot of post-processing in order to get rid of them. But this makes them very, very minimal. It gives really beautiful light. You can see everything is really nicely lit. It's a little bit warm, but that's okay. This is a very usable file. Our windows are nice and clear, as you can see here, and this is without my flash preset on here. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to choose my flash preset, which is this. And that is a nice, beautifully clean flash. You can see what I do to it. I have my camera profile. I do leave this one on Adobe Color. If you want to, you could go too flat. I find that leaving it with a bit more contrast is better. So you could use camera neutral if you wanted as well. You can see the difference there. Adobe Color is a little more contrasty, so I'm actually going to do camera neutral. And we're going to go over to that flash setting, and we're going to hit right click it and update with current settings so that it updates it and keeps it that way. Camera neutral is a nice middle ground. The V2 is just the camera matching profile. Yours may not say that, and it is dependent on your camera maker. I do have the white balance set at a custom. This has been what has worked for me, because if I go and do a flash, it tends to be a little bit green. And that seems to be an issue with, not really an issue, but a nice quirk of the Nikon Z7. It tends to be very green in its white balance a lot of the time. I don't know if that's just the sensor or what that is. No exposure, no contrast. Again, -75 on the highlights, 60 on the shadow. This is pretty much the same thing as my pre-infused preset, just moved for a flash. Same thing on the detail and the lens corrections, no changes. Okay, so we have that pulled in, but you'll notice it's not here, and that's because we are currently in the previous import catalog. What we want to do is we want to be in the catalog that has all of these in here. Now, I don't see it over here. Oh, it's right here under the local disk. So I have 3 different disks on here, hard drives. So it's right here in the YouTube shoot files. And you can see here is our infused image. And that looks pretty good. We are going to click our post-infused preset, and you'll see what that does for me. That one just adds a medium contrast curve to it, and it still keeps that detail, because if we have that detail turned off, and this might be too sharp for some people, but if you have that detail off, it just doesn't feel sharp enough. It feels almost a little bit blurry and halo-y. So I put the detail back on it. Sometimes you lose a lot of contrast, and you can lose those details when you do an infuse. So I put another sharpening on there. Same base sharpening I use for everything. And you can see we're pretty much in the middle of the road, but I like this guy to be just to the right of the middle, so we're going to turn that exposure up. We're going to go right about there. Now you can pull these sliders and things like that. It doesn't respond as well as a raw file, but we're not going to need it to, because you kind of want those windows to be a little bit brighter. So I think we're going to be good. I'm going to, even though this is not the right color for everything, because you could click this and actually make it the right color, we're going to just leave it, and we're going to take it into Photoshop and watch the magic happen. So make sure you have both of these guys selected. 2 ways to do this. The first way is you can have them both selected, hold Control while you're clicking them, and it will select them. You can right click them, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop, or you can use Smart Object Layers if you prefer. I usually use layers. The other way, the faster way, is to just Control click both of them, Alt P. Let me do that one more time. Control click both of them, hold Alt P E up arrow enter. And that is going to go through your menus with just your keyboard shortcuts and hit open as layers. My Photoshop's a little goofy. That's because I am trying to work on a lower resolution. Everything's a little bit fuzzy. Everything's a little bit goofy because of this, so I apologize. We will try and, there we go. Okay, we are now in Photoshop. So in our other videos, we have talked about those actions that we set up. I'm going to use them now. I click down here to deselect and press F2, and I have a complete lumosity blend right there. And look, you can barely tell there's any shadows. Whoopsie daisy. You can barely tell there's any shadows. This is where it should be, nothing there. This is where it should be, there's nothing there. And you can see I have done nothing but put my lumosity blend mode on here. Just like every other tutorial I've seen, just like my tutorial I have on this channel. I've done nothing else, and you can see from it, it is extremely natural looking. There are not a lot of harsh shadows. We might have a little bit down here, you can see a little orange, but that is that flash that I am using with that modifier. It is all of my actions that I have set up. You can see how quick this is, and you can see how nice this looks. Yeah, we have a little bit of things. You're always going to have something. There is not going to be a one-click solution, because the day that that happens, there will be a million YouTube videos and the industry is going to change and move to it. But there just isn't, unfortunately. So this is our shot. You can tell we've got, this is a mark on the wall. I thought it was my camera. But we can look around, we can see our windows. They're not exactly where we are. Are they good enough? Absolutely. If you wanted to send this to somebody, I think you'd be pretty good to do it, but we can do a little bit better. So we're going to go up to our windows here. This is the traditional darken mode. I've had a couple comments saying, hey, do you have a method? I really hope you have a method that doesn't use flash and darken. You can hand mask things, but quite honestly, there isn't really something that's going to be faster and easier than using the darken mode that Rich Balm, I guess, came up with. I don't know. I have not heard of the man, so it's a pretty standard way of doing things using darkening mode. I don't think he came up with darkening mode. He may be the person that came up with using it this way, but I don't. Darkening mode has been around. It's just a blending option. So we're just going to hand paint this stuff in. And I can show you a couple different ways. This is just by hand, so we're just kind of going roughly in here. This one looks a little rough. You can see it's kind of like a little hazy in certain areas, and we want it to be a little bit better. So what I will show you what we'll do is we are going to get rid of this guy, and we are going to delete the mask, and we're going to add it back in. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take my pen tool, and I'm just going to trace around here. We're going to go this way. And what I'm looking for when I'm doing this, because you'll notice I'm kind of following some different lines, is that I'm not going to grab this down here because there's no light coming through it and it's going to turn really dark. And I purposely shot it with these shades down because I want to show you how difficult this can be sometimes, but how we can work around them, because I like to shoot with them up. I'm going to be honest, I almost always try and get them up unless the owners tell me that, hey, we can't do that. You know what? I don't like that. So what I'm looking for here is that this is kind of bright, and I don't really enjoy where that's going. So these have a little bit of a curve to them, so we'll just add it. What I'm trying to do is select the bright areas and avoid the darker areas. And the reason why is because that flash is going to bring it down a little bit. We do have this here, which we may have to come back and get, but I think we'll be okay. Let's go this way. We are going to, on this one, we are going to come down to here and grab this guy and follow the little curve of the shade. And we're going to go up here. Now, this isn't the quickest method. I will tell you that. And we're avoiding up here because it's kind of bright. You know, should we though? I don't think we will. Up here and jar it. And I'm doing this because I want to show you what I'm thinking about as I'm doing it. I think a lot of YouTubers and a lot of this stuff is so set up, and people have such a agenda when they're doing this that it doesn't come off as feeling genuine and natural, because I'm making these decisions. I have not pre-edited these. This is all as we're doing this. And I want to give you that opportunity because I think you guys deserve that. So you can see this really helps us with getting that all pulled in. And now I'm not going to go crazy on this here. We can see that looks pretty good, right? That looks pretty good. It doesn't look that bad. This is a little dark right here, but I think we're getting nitpicky because I don't really think somebody's going to be like zoomed in, you know, looking at this. I think they're going to be, we're taking this as a whole. Now, next thing I would do is flatten this. That's my next step because I'm happy with where we're at. I don't think we need to blend in any of the ambient. Let's do that. Okay, next thing we're going to do is I have F5 set up for that color layer. So that is just going to make a new layer, and it is going to change it to a color blending mode. I have my brush here at 0% hardness, super soft, and we're going to sample something in here because it's very easy to make things pure white, but we want to kind of match the overall tone, and I like the tone on this wall. We're going to take this and we're just going to kind of paint around on that color layer because there's a little bit of a warm cast and we want it to go away. Okay, I took that out. Let's go here and grab this kind of gray. And what we can do is we can just roughly take our pen tool. You can use whatever you like. I like the pen tool. And just kind of roughly grab this. I'm not going to go nuts and grab this couch or anything. But we just want to roughly select it. Doesn't need to be perfect because we're not going to be painting over all of this. Make that selection just to keep it from bleeding over onto that white. And we're just going to kind of touch that up a little. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. Just something like that. And you can see how that takes that nice kind of green cast off stuff. And it makes it much nicer, much cleaner. It's not that hyper clean, hyper gray and white. Like there's grades to it. There's still a little bit of warmth here, but that's because this light is warm and it should be a little bit lighter here and it should be a little warmer here because this light is warm. And it's warm here. I think that when you start getting the editing that is taking all of that out, it starts to look really unnatural. And this image is very natural. It's very clean. And when you're moving in it, you can do it quickly. If you are looking to do it this way, it's a very easy way for you to get better at editing and to do it yourself. I do not do most of my real estate editing for me. As I have said in other videos, that might shock some people because I give a lot of tutorials on it. This would be something I would turn over to a design client and I would do, or not really an architecture, this isn't an architecture client, but a client who is a woodworker or a client who is a furniture designer. If they have something set up like this, a stager, this is something I would do for them because you're not going to be turning over 40, 60, 80, 100 photos sometimes to them, and you don't need to do it that quickly. You can take a day, you can take 2 days. Sometimes you have a week that you can take to do things like this and really take your time. That's what this editing is for. But yeah, that's fully it. I have F4 bound to flatten, so I'm going to hit that again. Flatten my image. We'll Control S to save and Control W to close, and then click Lightroom, and we are back in it. So if we want to review, this is where we started with our HDR. This is what it comes out of Infuse looking like. I did no color correction to this at all. I just increased the exposure by 0.6. I added a medium contrast curve and a little bit of sharpening. We then came to this photo out of Photoshop. Again, this is a blemish on the wall we can fix in Photoshop, or we can fix here. Oh my goodness. We can fix here if we want to. That I have my visualize spots on, but you don't have to. You can see here that kind of has another one here we want to take out. Boom. And there we go. That takes it out. I kind of like Photoshop's a little bit better than their generative fill on here, but that's just me. You could go into transform, hit automatic if you want to, hit level, whatever you want to do. It's pretty straight because I get it out of camera that way. I will say this wall feels a little bit off. So what we might do is come in here and do a guided. Now, I have said before I like Photoshop's better than Lightroom's, and that's because Photoshop's is like, see how it moves really weird? Maybe it's me. I have just always found Photoshop's to be so much more twitchy and less user friendly. So we're gonna go here, drag this guy here, just like that. That way we stay on the edges of our lens because that's where the distortion likes to live. Not every lens is like that, but super wide angles that we shoot at, like 14mm, that's where it's gonna live. 2-point perspective, so we're good. And that's that. that is ready to go, I would export that with the name of the room on it, and you've got it. So that is our tutorial. I hope it was informative for you. I hope you guys can learn some things. Keep the questions coming. We will keep making content. We will keep moving forward. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one.